What's Wednesday? Valentine's Day. It's funny you said Valentine's Day and not Ash Wednesday. Especially in a church setting, you would think that maybe that might come to mind. It is indeed Valentine's Day, and it is indeed Ash Wednesday. They happen on the same day this year. Now, what's Ash Wednesday? Beginning of Lent. Very good. And how long is Lent? 40 days. 40 days, is that right? It's actually 46 days. You don't count Sundays. So it's 40 days. So both answers would be right? And what happens on Ash Wednesday? Go to church, right? It's the time that we lead up, where it starts at the beginning of the Lent, we lead up to, leading up to what? Easter, that's right. We're leading up to Easter. It's a time of preparation, right? It's a time to get our hearts right, kind of draw closer to God as we get ready to celebrate Easter, right? And you go to church on Ash Wednesday and they put some, who's been to an Ash Wednesday service? A few people. And they'll take some ashes that are made, usually they're ashes from the palms from the previous year that have been burned. And they'll take those and they put them on your forehead using the sign of the cross. And they'll say something like, from ashes you came, to ashes you will return, which is kind of a reminder of Genesis, I think, 3:19. That's not real uplifting, is it? I mean, you want to think about going back to being ashes. Anybody in here? That's not an uplifting. I hope you ain't going to preach on being that preacher, because that don't sound too good. To me, that's not real uplifting. But it's just meant to be a reminder that time is short. That our time is short. That our lives aren't always as long as we think they're going to be. There's a lot of stuff to do in a short time to get there, right? But still, Lent has always been a kind of a sad season for me. And, I grew up in the Catholic Church, and they always play the saddest music during the month of Lent. I mean, the 40 days of Lent. Those weeks leading up to Easter, it's always been like a downer for me. I almost dreaded going to church because they always played the saddest songs. I just felt like I was going to a funeral every week. And I hate that. And I hated that Lent, that's how Lent was viewed. And I was reading something this week, and it kind of got me thinking about Lent in a different way. And I was reading about a church that had made their theme for Lent 40 Days of Love. And I said, that's kind of interesting. And I started thinking about it, and in fact, that's what it is. If we see God as love, because the Bible tells us that God is what? Love. God's love. Which kind of goes along with Valentine's Day. Right? So God is love. And as a matter of fact, we can't say we love God and hate our brother, can we? Because if we say we know God, but we hate our brother, then we really don't know God. Because God is love. So what if we changed our perspective and saying that we wanted to draw closer to God meant that, well, in reality what we wanted to do was to take those hateful things out of our life. What if we said we wanted to concentrate for the next 6 weeks thereabout on just loving people? What if we did that? Wouldn't that be something that'd be a little bit more uplifting than ashes to ashes, dust to dust, right? That's a little, at least it's got that beat, right? But in essence, God gave us 2 commandments, right? What did he tell us to do? He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with everything you got. Basically, that's what he said, right? Then he said, love your neighbor as yourself. So there's 2 commands, or the 2 things that he's given us to do, the 2 tasks before us are both based around what? Love. We're supposed to love people, we're supposed to love God. So if in fact we want to prepare our hearts to draw closer to God, the thing we need to concentrate on is, in fact, what? Love. If we concentrate on love, we're not going to steal from somebody. We're not going to cheat them. If I love you, I'm not going to cheat on you or steal from you or lie from you. All those 10 commandments, if you rather go the big 10 as opposed to the big 2, because all the big 10 are covered in the big 2, right? You're not going to do any of those things. So if we're to repent, as we talked about last week, to turn away from those things that are bad, then what we need to turn to is love, right? And so I read that this pastor had come up with this theme for the season of Lent, and I thought, wow, that's a great idea. I said, I think we at Ledbetter should do that. That maybe we should just take time to love on other people, to really concentrate on, are we loving each other? Are we loving God with all our hearts? And you know, as if with any challenge or any project, not everybody's going to be 100% on board. And I get that. Even in this church, this pastor reported that there was one gentleman that came to him after the service, and he was like a man's man, you know, like an ex-football player, like to hunt and fish. And he said, you know, Pastor, he said, I love you. He said, and I love this church. He said, but I ain't going to get involved in all that mushy stuff. He said, it's just not for me. He said, you know, I'm just not that kind of guy. I don't, you know, I'm just not going to do it. And the guy said, okay, you know, you do what you feel like you need to do. He said, I'm not going to make you do it. It's just a suggestion. It's a challenge to do it. Well, the next Sunday, the guy hung around after the service, and he sought the pastor out. He said, you know, I want to apologize for what I said last week. He said, I was wrong. He said, I realized about Wednesday that I was wrong. And he said, well, what? He said, what happened on Wednesday to make you realize you were wrong? He said, I got one of those letters you challenge people to send. He said, somebody sent one to me. He said, it made me realize that I was loved, that I was important to somebody else. And it changed me. He said, it changed me so much that I went out and wrote 10 letters myself and sent them out to people to let them know how important they were to me and how their lives mattered to me and how I actually felt about them and I loved them. You know, God speaks to us in some weird ways sometimes. And sometimes it's through a little note from somebody saying, you know, I care about you. You're important. Don't ever doubt yourself. You're an important part of my life. You've meant a lot to me. I love you. You know, you can don't ever underestimate the power of words. You know, words are a powerful thing. You can speak truth into someone's life with words. You can speak encouragement into someone's life with words. Or you can speak discouragement into someone's life with words. How many of us have spoke discouragement into someone's life at some point? I think, you know, I've had days, I've had moments. My life's not perfect. I wish I could say that all my words have been encouraging throughout my life, but, you know, I'd be lying, and I'm just not going to do that. I do concentrate on trying to speak encouragement into people's lives. You know, I think it became most apparent to me when I was raising my daughters. As I was raising my daughters, I felt like I had two jobs. First job was to love them unconditionally. No matter what, I was going to love them and make sure they knew it. And the second thing was to speak words that built them up every day. Because I knew when they walked out of my house into the world, that the world was going to try to tear them down. The world was going to tell them they weren't pretty enough, not good enough. Nobody liked them. Whatever it took, the world would speak discouragement into their life. Because that's the world we live in. Let's face it, you know. Let's face it. We live in a world that discourages people. I mean, I wish I had better news for you, but I don't. I mean, the world out there isn't fair. It isn't always nice, is it? Has someone ever said something that hurts your feelings? Yeah, I see some heads nodding. Yeah, I've had my feelings hurt too. It's not a good feeling, is it? Would you have rather somebody had spoken words of encouragement into your life? Yeah. I can tell you, you know, Pastor Appreciation Month is one of my favorite months because this church does like a phenomenal job of sending me notes, sending me letters, just a word or two saying, we appreciate you. Thank you very much. So every day I go to the mailbox and I know there's going to be another note in there from somebody because y'all spread them out too. I don't know how y'all coordinate all that stuff, but they're spread out through the whole month. And I get these notes and they mean something to me. They may just mean a few seconds of your time, but they mean something to me. And sometimes I'm having a bad day. And they're words that pick me right up. They make me feel like what I'm doing is important. If to no one else, to this one person. Sometimes that's all it takes is to feel important to one person to get you going, isn't it? To lift you up, to knock away the negatives in your life. Because there are always going to be negatives in your life, aren't they? There's always going to be people who will tear you down. And I can tell you this from experience is that you can have 10 people tell you that you look nice. And one person say, what were you thinking when you said that on? And which one are you going to remember? You're going to remember that, what were you thinking, aren't you? We practice our talks for Emmaus, and we have critiques. It's my least favorite part. I hate critiques. I hate to be criticized. I don't want to hear it. And for the most part, I get 99% positive things said. But the one person who says something like, well, you may have lingered in this area too long, or what? I remember that, and I think about it. I forget all about all the positives that have been spoken into my life. And I remember the negative. Because I think that's human nature, because we want to be perfect. We're not going to be perfect, but you're perfect in God's eyes. And He loved you enough to send His Son. He saw you as a person of value, someone worth saving. And He sent His Son to die for you. That's pretty important, isn't it? That's an important thing to remember on those days when you're down. That God sees you as a person of value. Because we all have those down days, don't we? Let me ask you this. How many of you would love to get a note in the mail that said that you were important to somebody? Be honest. Really? Some of you wouldn't appreciate that. Okay. Well, that's good. Y'all are full of yourselves. Y'all think too highly of yourselves. I'm going to just tell you right. No, I'm just joking. But for a lot of people, that means a lot. And you never know when those days are going to hit, when you're going to need that encouragement, right? And that's what the Bible tells us to do, is to encourage one another and build each other up. And when I say encourage one another, and I say something nice to somebody, I don't mean to preface it by no offense. No offense, but that's an ugly tie. That doesn't make it an encouraging statement when you say no offense. No offense, that dress makes you look as big as a barn. No offense. No offense. That doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it encouraging. That doesn't make it a kind word. We need to speak kindness into people's hearts. God put love in our hearts, and we need to reflect that love back out into the world. That encouragement into other people's lives. Sometimes you say, well, that's hard for me, Pastor. It's hard for me to do that. And a lot of times it's hard for us to do that because nobody has spoken encouragement into our lives. And sometimes we need to speak encouragement into our own lives. We need to make sure that we tell each other, you're all right. You're all right. You're not perfect, but you're all right. Right? You're good. You look pretty good. I can't run, but I can walk. That's good. Walking's good. It's better than crawling. Or if I'm crawling, it's better than not being able to crawl. We need to be able to speak encouragement into each other's lives, but we need to be able to speak it into our own lives. And if you can't find it in yourself to speak encouragement into your own life, then you need to spend time in here, in the Scriptures. Because the Scripture is really a love letter between God and His creation. Telling you just how important you are. Telling you how much He loves you. This is a book that is meant not to bring you down, but to put a peace and a hope and a joy in your heart. And that's how it should be viewed, and that's how it should be read. You know, the good news of the gospel is that you were important enough for God to send His Son to die on the cross for you. That's a big deal. That's a very big deal. If that doesn't give you hope, that the creator of the universe wanted a relationship with you so bad that He sent His Son to die for you, I don't know what will. That He wanted to spend all eternity, not next week, not next weekend, not next Sunday or next Wednesday, but forever with you. That should give you hope. That should give you peace. To know you're loved like that. But you know, God's not the only one who loves you. I think you look around this church, you'll find there's a whole lot of people in this church that love you. They care a lot about you. And if you needed them, they'd be there for you. Now, we're not always that way. Sometimes we get so caught up in the world that we, myself included, we get sidetracked. And we forget what's really important. And what's really important in your life isn't your things. It's not your home. It's not your job. It's not how much money is in your bank account or your 401 or your savings or your stocks. What's really important to you is the people that are in your life. That should always be your top priority. Whoever those people are. Some of them are in this room and some of them are not. Some of them have impacted you in a positive way in your life that will change you forever. That God spoke truths into your life through other people. But have you ever told them that? Have you ever told them how important it was that they were a part of your life? Have you ever written them that note? Or you just ignored it? They know. They know. They know. I don't have to tell them. They know. They do. They know. How do you know they know? You remember that one negative you remember? How do you know that's not what they know? You know, I put an investment in this person. I invested my time in this person and never even came back and said thank you. How do they know? You see, we're supposed to speak those words of encouragement. But all too often we don't think and we just speak. I think that's what Sunday school was on this morning, wasn't it? About being in a hurry to speak. As Christians, we need to be slow to speak. We need to spend more time in thought before we open our mouths and let those things that are up here just come rolling out without a filter, right? Oh, we put no offense on there, make it sound good. But I mean, but you know, way too often we just open our mouths and say things that we wish, after we say, we're like, come back, I wish I could take that back. I wish I had said that. You ever been there? I can tell you a lot of times my mouth is open and I wish I had kept it shut. I mean, I can tell you it's true. I'm not proud of it. But there have been times in my life that I've said things that I wish I could take back, but you know what? You can't take them back. Once you release them, they have a life of their own. That's scary, isn't it? That's scary. So before you release them, make sure they're the ones you want to release. Right? Make sure that they are words that are meant to build up, that they're words of kindness, that they're words that you would be afraid to say in front of Jesus if He was standing right there with you. Would you say it the same way? If Christ was standing next to you? Or would you stand there mute? That's probably what I'd be like. You got this, Jesus, baby? I mean, because I don't have the words sometimes. Sometimes things are better handled with kindness than with harshness. You get a little farther in life when you're kind to people than when you beat them up. Some of you remember John Wooden, basketball coach, famous basketball coach from UCLA, won all these national championships. One of the winningest coaches of his, at the time when he was at UCLA in the late 60s and 70s. And he was telling a story about that he was from Centerton, Indiana, and that he had, growing up, it was a farm town that had a lot of gravel pits, and the farmers would go and get the gravel from the pits on, their wagons, and the horses, and they would load them up, and they would go back to paved roads with them and that type of thing on the farm or trails. And he said that some of the pits were steeper than others. And he said he never forgot this. One day he went with his dad to the pit, and there was a young farmer about 20 years old, and he was trying to lead his horses out of the pit. These two big horses out of the pit, and his wagon was loaded down, and he was screaming and cursing and whipping the horses, and they wouldn't budge. They were just kept drawing back and kept drawing back, and he couldn't get them to go forward for nothing. And the more they resisted, the madder he got. Until his dad had seen enough, and he walked over and said, "You mind if I help you out here a little bit?" And the young farmer was just glad to have somebody come up and help him. He said, "Sure." He said, "Okay." And he took the reins, and he walked up to the horses, and he petted them on the nose a little bit, and talked to them in a calm voice, and he walked between them, kind of patted them, and rubbed them a little bit, talked to them a little bit, very calm voice. He said, and he walked out in front of them, and he gave them a whistle and a little tug, and the horses pulled the wagon out. And he said what he learned from that, he carried into his coaching life, is that sometimes you have to treat people with kindness. That sometimes beating people up isn't the answer. That the answer is to treat them with kindness, to talk respect and love into their life, and you get a different result. I can tell you in my life, I've won some arguments in my life, but rarely have I ever won an argument with screaming and yelling. I've been louder than some people. I can get loud now. But it doesn't make me right? Like I used to always tell my daughters, that being loud doesn't make you right. It just makes you loud. Right? So I think when we handle the challenge I'd like to put before this church going forward for the next 40 days, and I'll have more challenges each week, but this coming week, is for you to sit down and write a letter. Now some of you are going to say, I ain't doing it. Okay. Still the challenge is there. I'm going to do it. And I pray you'll do it. To concentrate on love for other people. To find, if it's just one person that's made a difference in your life, and write them a note. It can be 2 sentences. It can be 2 pages. I'm not asking, there's no specifications here. What I am asking you to do is to let somebody know how important they are to you and what an impact they had to you, to your life. You know, as a pastor, I've spent way too many days in funeral homes and in gravesides. And I can tell you the most common regret is words not spoken. I wish I had told them. I wish I had shared how important they were. I hoped they knew. You don't have to hope. You can send them a letter. Don't talk to them when they're gone. Talk to them now. Speak love into somebody's life this week. Just a little word of encouragement. Just a little note to say, you know what? I don't know what the rest of your life is like, but you're important to me. You impacted me. You changed me. God used you to bring encouragement to my life. God used you at some point in my life to speak to me. And I just want to say thank you. If we do that, they're going to change the world. Because when we go out into that world, I'm going to tell you right now, that's not an encouraging place to be, is it? But we can make it encouraging, can't we? You know, if God is love, then the devil or the adversary or whatever you want to call him, Satan, whatever you want, is what? Represented by what? What's the opposite of love? Hate. So are you a person of hate or a person of love? It's a choice. You know that, right? You can choose to do good or you can choose to do evil. It's a choice. God gave you free will. The question is, what are you going to do with it? God is love. So let your actions reflect love. Let your words reflect love. And you will be drawn to a closer relationship with God. If you can't speak love into your own life, come to the Scriptures and let God speak it into your life for you. 40 days of love. It'll change you. It'll change those around you. And it will definitely draw you closer to God. And all God's people said,